Alright, welcome everyone to Medical Tutor. In our last video, we discussed 1 to 20 JAMB past questions which are mostly likely to be repeated in your exam. However, we also informed us that these questions, although they are likely repeated questions, does not mean they are going to come out in your exam. But we discuss these topics intensively in relation with each question, so that if there's any question that's coming from similar topics also, you're going to be able to answer them without having to go through your textbook or whatever you are reading in preparation for the JAMB exam. So thanks for watching our video, and I want you to click on the subscribe button, put on the notification bell before we start for today. If you haven't watched the number 1 to 20 past questions we did, please go and check it. It is very important. Although you can also continue with this, but it's very important for you to know about those as well. So today we are going to be starting with question number 21. And it says, insects are considered the most successful among invertebrates because they are considered the most populous, the most successful, the most seen among the invertebrates because the last option says they have wings for flight. Not all insects have wings for flight. For example, the ants, sugar ants in particular. Sugar ants, I don't think they have wings at all. They possess exoskeletons. Well, it's not only insects that possess exoskeletons. The arthropodas entirely as a phylum, most of them possess exoskeleton. And insects are just a class under the arthropodas, also known as class insectas. So they possess the ability to change their forms. Not really true. Not all insects are able to morph. Not all insects are able to morph. For example, the arthropodas that are able to morph include the butterflies. So not all insects have the ability to morph, but that does still not contribute to their successful variation in the community. Now, they say survive in various environmental conditions, which is very true. Now, they have the ability to survive in various environmental conditions, whether it is harsh, cold, whatever. And this is why you can almost find insects almost everywhere. This is why you can almost find them in your room, in your kitchen, where there is heat, where there is cold, you can almost find them there. This is because they have the ability to adapt that environment. So the correct option here is A, and I think we understand that. Okay, let's move on to the next question. The next question says, the system responsible for water conduction in plants is. Now, before we go into that, I want us to know about the water conducting system of the plant. We have the xylem, the phloem. Those are the two types of the water conducting system in plants, xylem and phloem. The xylem is known to conduct water and some ions, whereas the phloem is known for translocation. Now, what is translocation? Translocation means the movement of food from one region of the plant to the other part. For example, movement of food from the leaves to the roots or to the stem. That's what they call translocation. And the part of the water conducting system in plants responsible for translocation is phloem. So let me repeat this again. The xylem is responsible for water conduction and ions, as the phloem is responsible for food translocation. Then, talking about the parenchyma and the sclerenchyma, you can see here, these are all components of the plant. We also have the collenchyma. Parenchyma is a place where food is mostly stored in plants, especially the carbohydrates. The sclerenchyma helps to contribute to the rigidity of the plant. That's why you can see most plants standing. And the third one, which is collenchyma, contains chloroplast for photosynthesis, as you know. So the answer to this question here is the xylem. Like I said, it is responsible for water conduction. So let's assume the question you were asked is, the system responsible for food conduction in plants is dash. What will be your answer? Obviously the phloem, right? Okay. So let's move on to the next question. A peculiar characteristics of mammal is that. A peculiar characteristics of mammal is that. Now, let's first make a classification. Under phylum Chordates or Chordata, we have different classes and subphylums. We have them there. We have the aves, we're talking about the birds. We have the pixies, we're talking about the fish. We have the amphibians. We have the reptilia, and we have the mammalians. Now, the characteristics that differentiates us from the birds, toads, frogs, reptiles like snakes, alligators, etc. is the question which is being asked of us here. So, a peculiar characteristics of mammal is that, let's start from D. D says has lungs. Well, it's not only mammals that have lungs in particular. It's not only lungs that we have in C. They say warm-blooded. We are not the only warm-blooded animals too. Here they said has teeth. We are not the only one having teeth. And the other one here says has sebaceous gland. Well, this is a very important characteristics of mammals in general, sebaceous glands. That's to produce sebum, a oily substance that lubricates the skin. So the option here is A. So the next question says, the part responsible for respiration in mammals, the part responsible for respiration in your body currently is what? A. Lungs, B. Bone marrow, C. Rectum, D. Style. So is the style responsible? No, style is only found in plants. Rectum is part of your excretory system or the excretory canal. Bone marrow, that's a part of the bone that's responsible for blood formation. And lungs, yeah. Now let's talk about the three parts of the body that is responsible for respiration in humans particularly, or mammals generally. Now we have the lungs, that's one. We have the skin, that's two. And we also have another one again, okay? So I want you to research on that on your own. We have three, but the major two that I want you to know is the lungs. The skin is also helping in terms of little respiration too. So it is very important to know that although the most important part of the body that we need for respiration in humans particularly is the lungs, but generally in mammals, the cutaneous respiration, also known as the skin respiration, accounts only for about 1 to 2% of respiration in our body. So the most important part of respiration in humans is lungs, but generally cutaneous is also involved. Now what about in amphibians like toad or frog? What about the respiratory parts in them? Now, in toads or frogs, there are three types of respiration. We have the buccal respiration, that's the mouth. We have the cutaneous respiration, that is the skin. And the third one, which I've already said about the pleura, that one involves the lungs. Anything about lungs means pleura. So those are the three types of respiration in toads or amphibians in general. Whereas in mammals, lungs is the most important. Cutaneous is found in rare cases, very helpful. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So the next question here says, the endoplasmic reticulum is classified into how many? Into how many? That's the question. Before we go into that, let us first list out the contents of a cell, human cell in particular, or animal cell. Now, animal cell contains the nucleus, the cytoplasm, the cell membrane. Those are the most three important parts in animal cell: the nucleus, the cytoplasm, and the cell membrane. Now, the cell membrane is made up of the glycolipids, glycoproteins, etc. But those are the two most important components, the glycolipids and glycoproteins. The cytoplasm has a lot of organelles. Organelles are the smallest living components in a cell in particular. So these living components, we have the lysosome, we have the ribosome, we have the mitochondrion, we have the endoplasmic reticulum, we have the vesicles, Golgi apparatus. Now I want you to do a research on your own and give us in our comment section what is the smallest organelle of a cell. It's always common in most of these JAMB questions, though not every year, but you might be lucky to see it in your exam. So try and make a research on it, the smallest organelle in the cell. Now we also have the nucleus. The nucleus is the one that contains the hereditary material. Those are the genes, the chromosomes. We have the nucleolus. Nucleolus also contains some DNA and RNA, but most importantly it contains some proteins. So now, the endoplasmic reticulum, which is found in the cytoplasm, is divided into two. We have the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and we have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Now, the rough endoplasmic reticulum contains ribosomes or proteins on its surface. It has proteins on its surface, so that's why it is called rough, because there are a lot of, proteins are like granules. When you're talking about granules, Gary now, the way Gary is, that's what they call granules. So it has granules on its surface. So that's why it's called rough endoplasmic reticulum. And the other part is the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Now, if rough has proteins on its surface, then what about smooth? It means smooth does not have any protein on its surface, right? So those are the two classifications of the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay? Now let's talk about the functions of these two types of endoplasmic reticulum. The rough endoplasmic reticulum, also known as the RER, rough endoplasmic reticulum, is responsible for the production of proteins, and the reason is because it has ribosome. Now let me just show something. Ribosomes are organelles of the cytoplasm, and they are responsible for protein production. You understand? So if you find a ribosome on an endoplasmic reticulum, it will also be producing protein as well. So one of the functions of the RER, that is the rough endoplasmic reticulum, is for production of proteins. They also provide steroids as well. So then when coming to the smooth, talking about the smooth does not have ribosome, so it is smooth. So which means it can't produce protein. You know, it can only produce protein without ribosomes, but it does not have, so it can't produce proteins. So in the JAM question, they might ask which of the following endoplasmic reticulum produces protein. No, it is the rough endoplasmic. The reason is because it contains ribosome, and that's why it is rough. But the smooth is able to produce what they call lipids. You already know about lipids in the 1 to 20 JAM questions we did. Lipids can be divided into fats and oils, and I think you've already seen them in your food. When you are frying something, you are cooking something, you want to fry banana, we're talking about lipids generally. So the smooth ER is responsible for lipid manufacturing, whereas the rough ER is responsible for protein and steroid. So the question here says the endoplasmic reticulum is classified into how many, which you already know the answer, 2, which are dash and dash, rough and smooth. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. The next question here says, a plant-like feature in Euglena is the dash. Now, Euglena is a protozoan. I think we all know about that, right? The protozoan, the smallest classification in the kingdom, or the smallest kingdom generally. So, the smallest classification in the kingdom is a protozoan, and it has both plant-like and animal-like features. Now, talking about the animal-like feature, Euglena is known as an animal because it contains flagella. It has flagella. Now, you know about flagella already. When we're talking about flagella, we're talking about a locomotory system. Another similar locomotory system to flagella is the cilia. You've heard of cilia. What about the pseudocilia? Pseudocilia can be found in amoeba, amoeba as it is being pronounced by amoeba. So pseudocilia can be found in amoeba. Flagella can be found in Euglena. Now, there's another one again. Okay, paramecium. Paramecium contains the real cilia on its own, used for locomotion. So those are the 3 most important locomotory systems that you should know, and you should know which animal you can find them in. So the Euglena contains flagella, and that makes it animal-like. But the feature that now makes the Euglena to be plant-like, is it large vacuole? No, not the large vacuole, not the gullet, not the pigment spot. It is the pellicle. So the pellicle is adaptation of all plants, plant cell wall. This pellicle enables the plant cell wall to maintain a rigid structure. It enables them to maintain a rigid structure. You notice that the Euglena, unlike amoeba, has a specific shape. Now, the property that gives this Euglena the shape is because of the presence of the pellicle, and this pellicle is a property of plant entirely. So let's differentiate it again. Animal-like feature of Euglena is flagella, whereas the plant-like feature of Euglena is pellicle. Locomotory system of paramecium is the cilia, and that of the amoeba is pseudo, that is false cilia, pseudo. So that's that about question number 26. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, the next question here says, which of the following is an example of intraspecific competition? Now, let's talk about what competition means. Competition is a struggle between 2 the same or different organisms in order to acquire a specific resource in the environment. Like I say, it's a struggle between 2 or more, or 2 the same or different species in order to acquire a specific resource in an environment. Now, we have 2 types of competition. We have the intraspecific and the interspecific, just as spelled here, okay, specific. Now, let's first talk about the intra. The intraspecific competition means a competition between 2 species and 2 animals of the same species. It's a competition between 2 animals of the same species. Now, for example, let's compare it. A competition between 2 humans is known as intraspecific competition. 2 man, intraspecific. 2 woman, intraspecific. So a competition between humans and so on is known as intraspecific. But a competition between humans and lions is what they call interspecific. Now, note the difference. When it is between organisms of the same species, it's known as intra, that is within. But when it is between organisms of different species, it's known as inter. So always try and remember that between humans, intra. Between humans and lions, inter. And the question here is asking us that the competition between, which of the following is an example of intra-specific competition? That is, which of the following is an example of competition between 2 the same species? Now, the option here says yam and potato growing out through the window. Obviously, yam and potato, they are trying to compete for the light outside. Now, however, this is not the answer because yam and potato they come from different family. Yeah, they are both tuber, but they don't belong to the same family entirely. So we have a lizard and an ant eater. The lizard is a reptila. Ant eater is not a reptila, so it's not the same thing. Then a worker termite and a soldier in a limited space. Of course, you're going to be picking this as an answer because a worker termite and a soldier, I think you've read about termites before. They have different classifications. We have the worker termite, we have the reproductive ones, we have the soldiers. Now, these are from the same species and they have a general name known as termites. So, this is an example of an intra-specific competition. Okay, let's look at the last option before we decide. They said a hawk and an eagle targeting the same chicken. A hawk and eagle, they are both birds, but they are not from the same species. Yeah, they are from the same class, and their class is Aves, right? But they are not from the same species, so this is still interspecific. This is interspecific, but this one here is intra because both worker termites and termite soldier they are from the same species, known as the termites in generally. So in general, so that's the intraspecific competition. Now let's assume you have been asked for an example of interspecific. Then any one of these would have been the answer. Yam and potato are not from the same species, so it is interspecific. Lizard and ant eater are not from the same species, so they are interspecific. Now don't get it confused. It is true that lizard and ant eater might both be reptiles, but that's just their class. It is true that hawk and eagle might both be from the class Aves, but that's just their class. But competition has to do with the species and not the class. Remember, we have almost 6 or 7 hierarchies in biology. According to Carolus Nelius, we have the KCP, OFGS, that's the kingdom, the class, the order, the family, the genus, and the species. So you can see that the distance between the class and the species is very, very, very long. Now, they might be the same kingdom, they might be the same family, they might be the same class, but so long they are not in the same species, then the competition is always inter. And that's what happens to yam and potato. Though they are both from the same kingdom, the same family, the same phylum, but since they are not from the same species, then they will never be classified as intra. Instead, they will be inter. The same thing happens to the lizard and the ant eater. Though they might both be from the class Reptila, but so long they are not from the same species, then it will still be inter. The same thing with hawk and eagle. They might both be aves, that is birds, but so long they are not in the same species, then it's also the same thing as inter. Whereas worker termites and soldiers, they are from the same species, which is known as the termites in general. So I think that solves the question for this. Let's move on to the next one. So the next one here says, the spots and stripes of the leopard and tiger are examples of dash. The spots and stripes of the leopard and the tiger are examples of dash. Now, before we go into that, let's talk about the adaptations of animals to the environment. We have different adaptations, and one of the most important that animals use to survive in the environment is known as camouflage or coloration. Camouflage or coloration. So let's talk about the types of colorations we have. We have the warning coloration. Now, what the warning coloration does is that it is being used to scare off a particular predator. For example, there are some animals that have poisonous skin, poisonous glands, etc., like the toads and the frogs. Now, most animals already recognize the color of those glands whenever they see a prey. Once they notice the color of those glands, they're able to run away. That's what they call a warning coloration. It is used to scare off the predator. And that is not just that. We have the counter shading. According to the name, counter shading means although you are black, you are appearing to be white. So, for example, if you place anything in the dark, you should never be able to see that thing right. However, there are some animals that when you place them in the dark, you are able to see them even much better than when you place them in the light. So these animals, when you put them in the light, they appear to be dark. But once you put them in the dark, they appear to be light. So that's what they call the counter shading. We have the cryptic coloration. Cryptic coloration is also a camouflage as well. And if you've seen some animals, probably the predators, these predators, they try to undergo what they call cryptic coloration so as to make sure that their prey won't be able to notice them. So if the prey does not notice them, that means that they will be able to catch their food and kill it whenever they want to do that. And most times, I think the lions and all these animals that are mostly responsible in hunts use cryptic coloration for their hunts. And the last one is the disruptive coloration. Now, disruptive coloration works in such a way that although you are looking at me right now, okay, for example, you've heard of animals that can blend with the environment, right? Now, this is an example of disruptive coloration. You are looking at them, but you can't differentiate if they are truly there. Now, they are able to blend their color with the environment. So even though you are looking at them, you won't know it is them that is standing there. You just think maybe it's the grass or the trees or whatever. That's what they call the disruptive coloration. And the spots and stripes of leopard and tiger are examples of disruptive coloration. Now, you notice the spots and the stripes on these two animals helps them to blend with the environment. You are not going to notice that they are even standing there unless you place a close attention to them. And this also helps them in killing their prey, since their prey will be there standing unnoticed. So the answer is disruptive coloration. So the next question says, rodents gnaw on their food with their, talking about gnaw means like chewing the food. Now, how do rodents eat? How do they chew the food? What happens? What do they use? Now, the first option says strong jaws. Well, not necessarily strong jaws. The second one says flat ridged teeth. Example of flat enriched teeth is molar teeth. So you can see they are repeating the same option here. B and D are almost the same thing because an example of this is molar teeth. And the third option here says chisel-like front teeth. If you watched all these cartoons before and you see the rat, you see that their teeth is as if it's like a chisel. You've seen a chisel, right? In a carpenter's house, it is used to make a hole into something. That's why most of the times when you look at your bread, you see a hole in them, you see a hole in your clothes, a hole in your book or whatever. It's as if they are using the teeth to dig up something. And an example of the teeth that can do something like that is the chisel-like front teeth, not the strong jaws, not the flat ones. The flat ones can be used to chew, like to grind something, but they don't need anything to grind anything. They just need to chisel it out and carry it away. So, and an example of the flat teeth is the molar teeth. So this question is not that common in Jamb, but it is important that you also put it in your mind. The number of teeth in humans or mammals in general. Try and study that. Okay. Question 30 says, an evidence of the relationship between living organisms and their extinct relatives can be best obtained from. Evidence of relationship between living organisms and their extinct relatives. For example, scientists are trying to find out the origin of humans. So they've been trying to check different bones, bodies, and fossils left over. And that's why they brought the theory that humans evolved from apes just because we have bones and some fossils that is relating to them, which is very wrong. However, that's not the cause of this video. Now let's check the first option. And the first option says paleontology. Now paleontology has to do with the study of fossils. Talking about fossils, it means dead organic matter. So paleontology is a study of dead organic matter. However, that can't help us to define the relationship between living organisms and their extinct relatives. Embryology refers to the developmental study of a baby or embryo entirely. The way you developed in your mommy, that's what they call embryology. So that can't help us to study the relationship between living and the dead. No. And the third one says comparative anatomy. Comparative anatomy, like I said, anatomy has to do with the body structures and the organs and the way they work with each other. So talking about comparative anatomy, you are able to compare the bones of people who have died already. The only thing that does not decay in the long run is the bones of dead bodies. Although the skin and everything might rot away, the bones still take a longer period of time before they disintegrate. So which means if you find the bone of an old person, maybe 1,000 years ago, you can still compare the bones with people that are living right now. And that's what they call comparative anatomy. Comparative physiology has to do with comparing how the body works. For example, the number of minutes it will take for a body to digest food, number of minutes it will take for a body to absorb the nutrients, this and that. That's what they call physiology. Physiology has to do with how the body works on its own. So we can't use comparative physiology to study the dead and the living because the dead is no longer working. So you can't see the number of times they will use to digest or absorb nutrients in the body. We can't study the physiology of their body. So D is out of the option. B is also out because embryology deals with the developmental study of a living being, not a dead being. And paleontology is also out because it only deals with the study of the fossils. So we can't use it to compare what is dead and what is living. But C, comparative anatomy, which deals with the study of the bony structures. So if you see a chicken bone and human bone, you are going to be able to differentiate that this is a chicken and this is a human. Even if you can't differentiate which one it is particularly, but you can obviously know that this one is not human, this one is not related to mammals in general. So the only evidence that can be used to distinguish the relationship between living and extinct is the comparative anatomy because it deals with the structures, and structures rarely degenerate over time. So the answer is C. Let's move on to the next one. The next question says, plants survive hot conditions by. So plants survive hot conditions by A, producing numerous leaves, B, having numerous stomata, C, having evergreen leaf, storing water in large parenchyma cells. Now let's go over to the question again. We have 2 or 3 types of plants. We have the mesophytes, we have the hydrophytes, and the xerophytes. Now let's go over it again. The mesophytes are plants that are able to stay in a region where water is not too much and neither is water deficient. For example, our current environment, water is not much there, sun is not so much. This is what they call mesophytes. They are in between. Now the xerophytes, those are the ones that can live in dry conditions like the desert, like they are devoid of water entirely. And the hydrophytes, like the water means water plant. It means plants that are able to live only where there's abundance of water. They can live inside water, they can live on top of water, but they can't live in a dry place or in your current environment. An example of that is water lily. So now the question is, plants survive hot conditions by, now talking about plants that can survive hot conditions, we're talking about the desert plants in particular, or the xerophytes. Now A, if they produce numerous leaves, remember that stomata is found on numerous leaves, or let me say stomata is found on leaves in general, so which means the more the leaves we have, the more the stomata. And the point of transpiration is known as the stomata, the point of transpiration. Transpiration means loss of water through the stomata. Just the same way you are sweating and water is being lost through the skin pores. That's how water is being lost through the stomata in plants. So the more the leaves, the more the stomata. That means if you have too much stomata, there will be water loss. And we're talking about dry condition. So if you are losing water, does that not mean that the plant is going to dry out? It's going to dry out. So the only way the plant can survive is by having lesser leaves, not producing numerous of it again. And option B also says the same thing. Having numerous stomata is not going to be helping because you'll be losing more water too. Having evergreen leaf. To be having evergreen leaf means to be directing all your nutrients to the leaves to be growing. To be green means to be continually nourished, which is also wrong. We don't need that. So this is storing water in a large parenchyma cells, which is correct because we need to reserve our water. We stop all the activities. We need to reserve our water and store them in a place where we're going to be using them slowly until we have a next supply. So plants in the deserts survive by storing their water in large parenchyma cells, and that's the answer for that. So let's move on to the next one. So question 32 says, the soil type that will be most difficult to plow in a wet season is one that is, now we have 3 types of soil in general. We have the sandy, the loamy, and the clay soil, right? Now the question is the type of soil that will be most difficult for you to use in planting or in cropping or anything. The soil type that will be most difficult in doing that obviously is A. They said the sandy. No, that's not the sandy. The sandy has a lot of spaces in between, so even if you pour water, a lot of water in it, the water is going to be drained away. The loamy, no, loamy is able to retain water, but it also has its own limit. Then we have the silty. According to the name silty, water is able to pass through it as well, but it's not even a class of water. No, this is not a type of soil in particular. We have the last one, which is the clay. Now the clay is able to retain a lot of water in abundance, and because of it, it's able to form a lot of molds. Most people use it to form molds in creation of some statues and etc. However, the ability to retain water is too much, and it really allows water to leave it, which is very bad. So which means that if you want to plow a clay soil during a wet season, it's very bad for your plants to survive in abundance of water or too much abundance of water. So clay soil is not an option. However, a loamy soil can be an option because it's able to regulate the inflow and outflow of water within it, unlike the clay. Sandy soil might also be a better option in wet season, although sandy soil lets go of water faster than the loamy, but because it's wet season, it means there will always be a continuous inflow of water as well. So the option out here is the clay. So this one will be the most difficult because it does not allow water to go out of it. However, it allows water to come in abundance. So the option here is D, clay. So the next one is question 35. Now the question says, which of the following plants is likely to be in a desert? We have the first one, the cashew. Of course, the cashew is in your environment currently if you find it. So it's not going to be in a desert, it needs water. We have the mango. It's not also going to be in the desert. Most of the fruit plants that we have are always not in the desert. In fact, almost 99% of the fruit plants are in a community where there's enough water, because whatever fruit you are going to eat, there's abundance of water in the fruit as well. Water is very important. So cashew, mango, all of them, they are not in the desert. We have the cactus. Cactus are plants that have spine. They've replaced almost all their leaves with spine. And I told you the other time that the more the leaves, the more the stomata, and the more the stomata, the more the loss of water, which is not needed in desert. So plants that can survive in desert are plants that have lost almost all their leaves, or their leaves are already modified into what they call spines. And an example of that is the cactus. So cactus is the answer for this because it has spines, which helps it to conserve water for future usage. Now the last option here says water lily. Obviously not, even from the name water. Water lily is an example of an hydrophyte. Water lily is often found on top of water or near where there's abundance of water. So it is out of the option. The only plants that we can see among all these four in the desert is the cactus. So option C is the correct answer. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Next one says, one adaptation of reptiles to water loss is the presence of dash. I told you the reptiles contains the alligators, the lizards. Most of them are scaly. That's one of the properties. Now, lizards, if you notice them, they don't have a skin like us, the kind of skin we have. They don't have hairs on their skin, and their skin is not really lubricated. Their skin is always dry, and the only thing that gives them the dry skin is because of the presence of keratinous scales. Talking about keratinous scales, we're talking about scales that are keratinized. That is, they have dead cells. So dead cells are not going to be watery, obviously. And eventually they also have a scale. A scale, for example, in fishes, you've seen a lot of scales on fishes before. And the same thing happens in lizards or reptiles. They have scales which helps them to prevent water loss. Now let's check the options one by one. The option A says long tails. No, obviously that's not going to be helping. And long sticky tongues. That does not stop water loss. Keratinous scales, like I said, because of the presence of scales and the keratin on their skin, they're able to minimize water loss. And the third one says claws on the limbs. So A, B, D are all wrong, whereas the correct one is C. So I hope we get that. Let's move on to the next. So here they said the scarcity of food causes a sudden decrease in population size. That is, in a situation whereby there's no much food, how will it affect the population of a society? For example, in Nigeria that we have about 206 million people, let's assume there's about 50% shortage in supply of food in Nigeria in just a day. What's going to happen to the population? The population is going to reduce, and that's what will lead us to two terms. We have two terms in biology, and that is mortality and natality. Mortality means death, and natality means life. So talking about mortality rate means the speed at which people are dying, the rate at which people are dying. Whereas natality means the rate at which people are living, or the more people are being given birth to. So that's why if you've seen all these pregnant people, they will say they want to go and do natality care, prenatal care, postnatal care. It means giving birth, giving life. So whereas mortality means death. So mortality means death rate. So now, the absence of food in the environment, what is it going to lead to? Will it minimize the rate of competition? No. If the amount of food being supplied in a country is low, competition is going to increase more. People will want to get as much as possible into their own house. They want to store as much as possible. Let's assume Nigeria just has a shortage of rice. Now everybody will be competing to get a large amount of rice because they don't know when the rice is going to come out again. So that will lead to increase in competition, not minimizing. The other one says raising the mortality rate. Obviously, it's going to increase the death rate because a lot of people are going to be hungry. The hunger ratio in Nigeria that is still high is even going to increase more and more. So people are going to die a lot. That is raising mortality rates. Then C says bringing about immigration. No. Immigration means movement of people from outside country into our country. Now imagine there's shortage of food in Nigeria. So does that mean people will still be coming into our country? No. People are going to be going out. That is emigration. So there are two types of migration. The first one is emi. Emi means coming into, and emi means going out. So people are not going to be coming into our country if we have shortage of food. They will be going out instead. That is emigration. And the last one says decreasing the reproductive rate. Well, this is also true. When there's scarcity of food, it can decrease the amount of births per day or per year in a country. Like I told you, natality rate means the number of births or the number of life being given. And if there is no food, well, only a few people will be considering giving birth, although not in the situation of Nigeria. But the most important option here is raising the mortality rate because hunger is going to increase. A lot of people are going to involve themselves in stealing, killing will come inside, robbing, etc. A lot of people are going to die of hunger. And you know, when there's hunger consistently in the body, a lot of diseases will have the ability to invade the body, and there'll be a lot of infections in the environment, can sure occur, and as much as possible. So the answer here is it increases the mortality rate. So now in a situation whereby this is not in the option, In a situation whereby this is not the option, this is the scheme of Jamb to also confuse people. If this is not the option, then you are going to be decreasing the reproductive rate, because if there's no food, people are going to be reconsidering. They are going to be reconsidering if they have to give birth to 4 child. You know, some people have the plans of giving birth to 10 child and 10 children. But if there's lesser food, then people will have to be reconsidering that option of giving birth to a lot of kids. So, but this is the best option, which is raising the mortality rate. That is, there will be more death. So that's that about number 7. Let's move on to the next one. So the 30th question says that association between termites and the cellulose digesting protozoan in their gut is an example of. Now, termites have a kind of protozoan in their stomach or in their digestive tract, and this protozoan helps them to digest foods or plants that are containing cellulose in their cell wall. So now, termites on their own are unable to digest plants that have cellulose. The same thing happens with humans. That's why you can't just go out there, pluck a leaf and start eating it. It's not going to digest because there's no protozoan that's helping you to digest it, unlike in the termites. That's why a lot of animals can eat a lot of plants, like the cows, etc. That's because they have all these protozoans in their stomach helping them to digest it. So the same thing happens with termites. They have a cellulose digesting protozoan in their stomach. And now the question is, what is the type of association between them? Obviously, you know, we have types of association. In particular, we have the mutualistic association and we have the parasitic association. And we also have some other ones like the saprophytic, the commensalic, we have the amensalic. So now, the mutualistic association is a relationship between two organisms in which both of them benefit. I will repeat, mutualistic relationship is a relationship between two organisms in which both of them benefit. Whereas parasitic association is a relationship whereby only one benefits, whereas the other one is being hurt. Only one benefits, whereas the other one is being hurt. In commensalism, one benefits, the other one does not benefit and is neither hurt. One benefits and the other one is not benefiting and is neither hurt. And saprophytism is also similar to that. Now, the question is, what is not the type of relationship between them? But first, let's define what they both do for each other. Termites eat and they need nutrients, right? But they won't gain the nutrients if there's nothing that will help them to digest. So which means the cellulose digesting protozoan is helping the termites to digest. That's one. The termites are benefiting. What about the cellulose digesting protozoans? What is their own benefit? If they help the termites to digest, then what's their own benefit? Now, this type of protozoans, the cellulose digesting protozoans, are unable to live outside the termites. There are a lot of organisms that they can't live outside some organism as well. They have to stay inside. This is an example of obligative protozoan. They can't live without the termite. Once they go outside of the termites, they are going to die. So which means the termite is providing them an environment that is suitable for living, whereas they are helping the termites to digest cellulose in return. So this type of relationship where both sides benefit is what they call the mutualistic relationship, which is why we are picking option A. It is neither saprophytic, commensalic, whereas one is just benefiting, and it's not parasitic, whereas one is benefiting and the other one is losing. So the answer is mutualistic relationship. Okay, so I think this is the last one. The last one says, a farm practice that results in the loss of soil fertility is. Now I think we've been taught in our secondary school about some farm practices, and we ourselves, we've also done it in our environment once or twice. Now, if you continue to deprive a land of rest, for example, in the Holy Book Bible says that you are going to plow for 6 days or not 6 years, then on the 7th year you are going to make the land to rest. Now, it's a general command for all farmers. So when you plant on your farmland for 6 years, let it rest on the 7th year so as to regain whatever it has lost. Now, the plant is like a source or medium for growth, and the soil is a medium of growth for plants. And the soil is going to be giving all its nutrients to the plant so that it can grow. Now, if you continue to plant continually without giving the soil rest to rejuvenate, then the soil fertility is going to be lost and the soil is going to spoil. So that's what happens to a lot of farmers who lack the farming experience. Now, the question is that the type of practice that can lead to such incidents, whereas the soil will lose its soil fertility and will be unsuitable for planting again, is what? Let's start from D, shifting cultivation. Shifting cultivation means, okay, this year I will plant banana. Next year I will plant maize. Next upper year I will plant rice. Now, this kind of cultivation allows the soil to receive different kind of nutrients and different kind of environment. So if you plant rice this year, once you harvest the rice, the leaves of the rice are going to go down back, become nutrients for the floor. You plant banana next year, they are going to do the same thing over and over again. So shifting cultivation really helps the soil fertility. Although it also deprives it, at least it's still helping. So that's not the answer. Bush fallowing. Have you read about bush fallowing? When you use all these animals and etc. to follow the floor, the bush, put all of them down, turn them into nutrients. But that's not also the focus of this. The other one says mixed farming. Mixed farming involves you planting. I think, yeah, mixed farming has to do with doing two things on the soil at the same time. For example, you are rearing on the soil and you're also planting on that same soil. Some farmers do that maybe when they come in relationship with the herdsmen. Those are people that are dealing with cows. So you have, or you enter a relationship, you are going to be using your cows to plow my land, and whatever refuse or the feces they drop is going to become nutrient for my floor. And whatever I plant also, they can also eat it. It will become nutrient from them. So it's a kind of farming that involves poultry, herdsmen like cattle, and also involves you planting all these crops at the same time. But any one of these will also help the fertility of the soil to increase. So if you've seen some cows in some farmlands, you see them dropping their feces on the floor. All these feces are going to become nutrients. They're going to become nutrients for the soil. And in reward, the cows are going to be able to eat the leaves or whatever they meet on the farm. So it's going to be helping the fertility. So this is not also the answer. And the first one says continuous cropping. Continuous cropping is when you continue to plow the floor or the soil without rest. You planted this year, you planted next year, next upper year you planted, continually like that without giving the soil rest to rejuvenate on its own. Eventually the soil is going to lose its ability to sustain planting. It's going to lose its ability to sustain cultivation, and eventually you won't be able to plant anything. And even if you plant, they won't yield. So the only kind of practice that can highly affect the soil fertility is continuous cropping, because it involves the removal of the soil fertility continually without rejuvenating it. So the option here is A, continuous cropping. And so that's all about the frequently repeated JAMB biology questions. And we are sorry for any of the mistakes that have been made in the video. Please make sure you use the comment section if there's any. Now, in our next video, we are going to be talking about some common terms you have to know before starting or doing your JAMB exam, particularly the biology questions. Alright, please make use of the comment section if you have a question for us. And I think I gave some little assignments in this video and the previous one. Please make use of the comment section to answer. This is going to help you to keep yourself active, and I think this will also increase your success rate in the upcoming exams. And then please make sure you share the videos to others. Don't be selfish, and click the subscribe button and the notification bell for our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.